Good morning, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News. Today is Saturday, the 8th day of March, 2025. And as we mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing breaking news again 7 days a week because of the number of stories that are breaking every single day. And so tomorrow, Sunday, the same thing will happen. We'll do our Sunday message program, but also today, instead of doing the weekend review, it's going to be breaking news. And good thing we're doing it because we have five, count them, five huge headlines that are setting the stage for the coming events predicted in Scripture. So let's look at them. Headline number one: Trump says something is going to happen with Iran very soon. After revealing he had sent a letter to Iran's supreme leader, yesterday the U.S. president said something related to Iran is going to happen very soon. And the operative words there are very soon. Now, what's it gonna be? Well, it seems the information we're getting is that the U.S. and Israel will destroy Iran's nuclear power. We know that the S-300s, that's their surface-to-air missiles, the Russian SAMs that Iran has, were wiped out a number of months ago. If you remember that, by the IDF when the IDF struck Iran. So basically, their air defenses are naked and blind, and Trump knows this. And it seems what he's going to do is destroy their nuclear, facilities there, and then tell them, they have to basically give up their proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas, or even worse things will be done. But that's just something Israel and the U.S. can do and seemingly will do in the coming days. And we've talked about this previously. If the U.S. and Israel have to destroy the nuclear power in Iran to basically making it toothless in its support of Hezbollah and Hamas, and this is the head of the snake that needs to be cut off. So the weapons support, the financial support just will not be there. So Israel could deal with those two problems on their south and on their north. Now remember, Iran must eventually be neutralized as the military power in the Middle East. We've been saying this time after time, seeing that there will only be surrogates, according to Ezekiel 38 and the predicted last days invasion of Israel. Their power must be limited. In other words, they cannot be the big military power in the Middle East. Russia will be that power. They will only be surrogates that will attack with Russia in this last days invasion. So this could be it. We will wait and see. But again, the operative word is soon. And speaking of what could happen very soon, here is headline number two. The Israeli Defense Force is told to prepare for an immediate return to Gaza fighting. Now, we've had that earlier from the Jerusalem Post. Well, last night, the Israeli network Kan News, KAN News, reported that Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered the Israeli Defense Force to prepare for an immediate return to fighting in Gaza. So, if Israel does indeed continue to fight in Gaza, look for the worldwide wrapping up of claims that they're committing genocide. Interestingly, with this same thing happening, at the same time, what is happening, there's a couple of stories, even in the news today. Various leaders around the world have again claimed that Israel is attempting to wipe out entire people of Gaza, again, genocide. And look for the anti Semitism to get all the worst if Israel tries to, wipe out Hamas once and for all, as, they've been intending to do. Now, this leads us to headline number three. Hamas is worried about this, obviously, about Israel coming and wiping them out. And this story is from the Israel National News. Psychological terror. Matan Angrest to Trump. This is one of the hostages. Bring us home quickly as possible. The family of Matan Angrest approved publication of a video released by Hamas, which contains a sign of life from Matan. We are shaken by the video we just saw, in which we see our Matan looking drained and desperate. Additionally, in this video, he addressed President Donald Trump, saying in Hebrew, "Bring back all the hostages. You're the only one with the power to influence Netanyahu and the government and push for this deal. Make every effort to bring us home as quickly as possible." And the family, of course, is horrible, is shaken by the video, which they've seen, their son looking drained and desperate after 518 days in Hamas tunnels. And so if you look at his state, it's sad. His right hand isn't functional. His eyes and mouth are not symmetrical. His nose is broken. And according to testimonies of those who have returned due to interrogations and torture and captivity, they have been basically tearing apart this young man to the place where he's barely alive. Now, look tonight. Here's going to be the result of this for a huge rally in Tel Aviv demanding that Israel gets all its hostages back now. Because, when you see a story like this, it's broadcast on the news. We got to get them back now. We got to get them back now. And the problem, of course, is Hamas is not willing to do this. and it realizes the pressure on Netanyahu's government not to resume the fighting lest these hostages be killed. And so you're going to have this huge rally tonight. And again, Netanyahu has to put up with this problem. And it is a problem. Your heart breaks for these hostages. There's still about 25 of them, maybe 25, perhaps less than that, that are still alive. And Hamas is going to do what it can to remind the people they're near death. And so something must happen. And what Hamas wants to happen is Israel to capitulate, to give in to their demands, which is something Israel cannot do and should not do. But it's very tough when you see the torture of these poor young human beings. So this is another situation that we'll see how this all pans out. All right, now speaking of another situation, let's go to Russia. Remember Russia and Ukraine? There was basically a ceasefire plan put in, put by Macron and the Brits, a French-British proposal for a ceasefire or temporary ceasefire before there's a permanent ceasefire. Well, here's headline number 4. Russia rejects Ukraine ceasefire, launches massive bombing campaign. This is from Breitbart. Russia said on Thursday that a partial or temporary ceasefire in its war on Ukraine would be unacceptable and only a comprehensive final settlement will do. They punctuated this argument by launching a massive attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure with missiles and drones. This also appears to be on the verge of ejecting Ukrainian forces from Kursk, the territory counter-invaded by the Ukrainians in 2024. And here's the key point here. The Russians currently rejected a French-British proposal for a 1-month ceasefire in the air, sea, and on energy infrastructure to be backed up by a coalition of the willing that would include at least 20 member nations, according to British officials. Firm agreements on a final settlement are necessary, is what Russia says. Without this, any respite or regrouping is absolutely unacceptable and will lead to exactly the opposite result. This from the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova told reporters on Thursday. In reality, we're dealing with an open desire to achieve a respite at the cost for the Kiev regime and its death throes for the Ukrainian armed forces and to prevent the collapse of the front, she said, of the UK-France temporary ceasefire. In other words, Russia is making more progress and about to further, denigrate Ukraine's military prowess in the area. So here's the bottom line. Russia's calling the shots here, and only a complete ceasefire will stop the fighting. No temporary ceasefire will be acceptable. It again speaks of what we've been saying, what the Bible teaches of the prominence of Russia at the end of the age, because they're going to be the one eventually leading the charge against Israel in Ezekiel 38-39 invasion that's there. So they have to be the big power in the Middle East. And again, they're flexing their muscles here, saying, no temporary ceasefire. We've got to have a permanent ceasefire or we keep on fighting. And again, Ukraine is getting pushed back and getting to a very desperate situation. Remember, the U.S. now has temporarily cut off any weapons to them. So we will see what happens next. And finally, our last headline, number 5, France, Germany, Italy, and the UK, not surprisingly, give support to the Arab-backed plan for reconstruction in Gaza. The foreign ministers of France, Germany, Italy, and Britain say they support an Arab-backed plan for the reconstruction of Gaza that would cost $53 billion and avoid displacing Palestinians from the enclave. The plan shows a realistic path for the reconstruction of Gaza and promises, if implemented, swift and sustainable improvement of the catastrophic living conditions for the Palestinians living in Gaza, the ministers said in a joint statement. Now, let's recall the plan was drawn up by Egypt and adopted by the Arab leaders earlier this month, has been rejected by Donald Trump, although there have been mixed signals from Washington, but basically it's been rejected. Now, this is further indication of what we just spoke about. The spotlight is on what? The plight of the Palestinians. Nothing is said about Hamas and what they have done to Israel as to why this debacle has occurred in the first place. Again, blame Israel. Seemingly, the only worry is the poor Palestinian people that are suffering. And they are suffering. And why are they suffering? Because of Hamas. They could stop immediately if Hamas lays down their weapons, but they won't. So again, blame Israel. We're going to wait and see what eventually happens here. But the bottom line in all this is more hatred of Israel, more anti-Semitism in the world, as the Bible predicts at the end of the age. So these 5 huge stories that we have today are again setting the stage for what the Bible said is going to happen at the time of the end of the age. Israel with and United States with Iran taking away Iran's powers, an immediate fight in Gaza, it looks like. And in the meantime, Hamas is doing what it can to, just taunt Israel with the poor hostages there that are still alive, barely alive, and the it's going to cause further problems in Israel. And then Russia flexing its muscles, saying, no, you have to have a complete ceasefire or we're not going to stop. And then again, France, Britain, and the rest, the usual, pushing a Palestinian state, pushing, the people to remain in Gaza. So Israel will have to do this all over again sometime in the future. So what's going to happen? Well, again, God only knows. Now we know what's going to happen eventually, but in the near time, so many things could take place. And we'll be here with you to bring you the latest. I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. So stay tuned. And until then, may the Lord richly, richly bless.